Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Draft where we take magic one draft at a time. My name is Morgan and this is a Legacy Cube Swiss draft. We're just waiting for two more people and we will get started. We are back. We are playing Legacy Cube, which is a little bit different than the Vintage Cube in that there's not nearly as many artifacts, and in fact there's no artifact ramp in this format, which makes the green ramp strategy is a little bit stronger and the blue ramp strategy is a lot weaker. So looking at something like Secure the Wastes, for example, you're not going to be able to hit a lot of mana for your Secure the Wastes unless you are able to produce it by naturally or by something like Mirari's Wake. So yeah, that's how this cube works. We are looking at things like Miscalculation. Miscalculation is a very strong blue card. It can cycle, which is great. There's a Birds of Paradise here, which is a sweet ramp spell, but it's pretty basic. There's an Inquisition of Kozilek, which can hit a lot of neat things. Most of the stuff in this pack, in fact. I think I'm going to start out by taking a Miscalc, though. Whenever I play a new strategy in a cube, I like taking the strong blue cards because that's what I feel like I'm most comfortable with, especially since like there are a couple of things you can do with blue cards in this format, including play a tempo deck with things like Thunderbreak Regent, play a control deck like with something like Wretched Confluence, or play an aggro deck with something like a Flame Slash or, Thunderbreak Regent. So that's what we're looking at here. There's also like the grindier control decks with things like Eternal Dragon. There's also cards like Thoughtseize. I think I take Wretched Confluence. I remember playing with this card in the Legendary Cube, and it was very good. You can kill one or more things, draw cards, and get cards back from your graveyard, which all seem like things that I want to be doing. So we're going to go ahead and take it. I'm not sure how many targets are for Collected Company, but that is an interesting option. There's also Profane Command, which is a pretty sweet black card. It usually just like domes your opponent for a bunch and gets you back a creature, or domes your opponent for a bunch and kills a creature, or domes your opponent for a bunch and gives your creatures fear so that they can dome your opponent for even more. There's also a Steam Vents, which is fine mana fixing. I think I'm just gonna go take the Profane Command and aim for something sort of control-y, but also mid-rangey. Profane Command is just a good card, I think. And in this format, taking removal, like Wretched Confluence and Profane Command, is just fine. There's a lot more creatures that have a lot more impact than in something like a Vintage Cube. Here, I'd like to take Ancestral Vision. This sort of card advantage is pretty good, especially when I'm playing cards like Miscalc, Wretched Confluence, and Profane Command. So, I'm going to try and get as much value as I can for a card like Wretched Confluence, but Miscalc is just a 1-for-1. So, Ancestral Vision seems like a good way to advance my plan while drawing me cards. And not having to really do anything. It's free. There's no mana involved, apart from like the first 1 mana, which should be incidental. Taking a card like Serendipity kind of appeals to me in this pack. There's also a Disciple Bolas, but I don't think I'd take that over Serendipity. Serendipity puts a lot of pressure on your opponent very early, and that means that it's easy to finish them off with something like Profane Command. Additionally, the efficient cost makes things like Miscalc and Ancestral Vision a little bit better. Legacy's Allure, for those of you who don't recognize this card, which you should. Darren Bader's art is genius. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can put a treasure counter on it, and you can sacrifice it to gain control of target creature with power less than or equal to the number of treasure counters on Legacy's Allure. There's also a Thespian stage in this pack, which I'm considering taking, mostly because there is a Dark Depths somewhere in the cube as well. I think it's a little bit better than Legacy's Allure. I do like control magic effects in this kind of deck, but I think we want another finisher apart from just attacking with Serendipity 7 times. We got a new plan, kids. I think I still take the Nicol Bolas. Threads of Disloyalty is pretty sweet. Gain control of creature with converted mana cost 2 or less, so you can get Tarmogoyfs, basically. There's also a Duress in this pack. Revel Arc is something that I like. So is Ophiomancer. But I think Nicol Bolas is a great addition to the team. That's exactly what I want to do at the top end of a deck like this. I'll pick up the Watery Grave. It's nice to have mana fixing, especially in a deck that can get pretty mana intensive. It means that you have more mana sources that are very flexible, so you have slots that you could put like random red mana in. So Watery Grave's fine, Bonfire is fun, and Doomblade is the thing I'd consider if Watery Grave was not in the pack, just because spot removal is a little bit more important in this cube than the vintage cube, but just about as important as it was in the legendary cube. So I could consider taking Stormtide Leviathan. I don't really think that's this deck though. Stormtide Leviathan is more of a reanimator kind of card. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and take the Trigon Predator and put it in my sideboard. Trigon Predator, being a naturalize on a stick, is pretty good in a cube where a lot of your win conditions are things like Basalt Monolith, but it's a little worse. Ooh, Flame Slash. It's a little worse in a cube where all of the artifact ramp is gone. Flame Slash is nice, especially if we get the mana fixing for it, because it's an early removal spell, and that's kind of what we want in this deck. Meteor Blast is a little bit ambitious. Bloodthorn Vampire is not very good in this deck, neither is like Collected Company or Eldrazi Monument. I think Thalia is probably the biggest blowout, so we're gonna go ahead and take it. I'm gonna take the Woodland Cemetery. It could enable us to take the Trigon, add the Trigon Predator to the deck if we really wanted. Same for Llanowar Wastes. Guess I'll take the Kami. Ooh, and a Tech Edge. Cool. So we've got a pretty good start to a Grixis control deck, and that's exciting. I like that kind of deck. What we are really looking for in this pack is mana fixing and creatures and removal. All of those things. Underground River is mana fixing. I don't think I want to take it here though. It's not the best mana fixing that you could get. I'm kind of eyeing that Part the Water Veil because it's basically Time Warp. And maybe like Cunning Spark Mage. Nothing in this pack really stands out to me, so I'm just gonna go ahead and take this Part the Water Veil. Part the Water Veil is really good when you have things like Nicol Bolas. I'm happy taking Go for the Throat here. Future Sight's another option, but it's a little bit expensive, and while it is good, it is very good, I think that in a deck where we want to play Nicol Bolas into Part the Water Veil, Go for the Throat is pretty important as it kills a lot of the core threats in this cube. There's also things like Psychotog and Stratus Dancer. That would be interesting. Windswept Heath doesn't get any of our colors, but it's definitely an option. You can take off-color fetch lands because you can usually get off-color other things. Here we have a lot of good cards, actually. Brainstorm is nice, although we don't really have any shuffle effects yet, and Brainstorm is really good with shuffle effects. Obnix is a way to draw cards. It's a Planeswalker, and Planeswalkers are good, especially in cube where there's a lot less removal for Planeswalkers. I like Shadow Mage Infiltrator a lot because I like drawing cards, and I like Teferi because Teferi basically locks your opponent out of the game if they're trying to interact with you on a level other than during their main phase and attacking with creatures. However, I think I just want to take the Obnixilis. This deck could be a pretty sweet Planeswalker control deck, so Obnixilis fits in that plan very well. There's a couple of cards that I'm interested in this pack. There's a Grave Titan and a Muldrifter, which are both very value-oriented creatures. Muldrifter's sweet with Wretched Confluence and Profane Command. There's also a Dismember, though, and I think I have to take that. If I want my Obnixilis and Nicol Bolas to have any chance of surviving at all, I probably need a Dismember. Grave Titan is an option, but I think Dismember is just better, especially since all of the Titans are in this cube, and I probably will have another chance to get a 6-mana spell. For example, here though, I'm going to take Jace Architect of Thought. It's another Planeswalker, which is A+ in my book. Also, it does a lot to protect the other Planeswalkers as well as himself, and the card advantage that you get from Jace is pretty powerful, so we're going to go ahead and take it. Alright, Read the Bones and Exclude are both fine. I like Exclude a lot. I actually have a copy of this card in German. Fun fact. This exact commander version of Exclude. Given I have a couple ways to get just raw card advantage already, Wretched Confluence and Ancestral Vision and stuff like that, I think I'm going to go ahead and take Exclude. Again, we're pretty worried about creatures in this deck. Here, I could take Dissipate if I wanted to have another thing to use as a counterspell. I could also take Pact of Negation, which I'm actually considering, because the most important time where we want to counter something is when we tap out for our Planeswalkers, especially. And after Jace, Obnix, Nicol Bolas are all things that we tap out for pretty late in the game, so we're probably going to have mana to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and take Pact of Negation. I think it's better than Solemn, and it's better than Dissipate and Brimstone Volley. In this deck, anyway. Here we have a couple of options. Sulphurous Springs is a piece of mana fixing, which we kind of need, although Nicol Bolas and Flame Slash are only red spells right now. I'm also considering this Malicious Affliction. Malicious Affliction, apart from having really great art, can kill 2 creatures as opposed to 1. We do have some removal, I think, so I think that we're going to end up taking Sulphurous Springs. I would consider Sorin, but I just want some mana fixing. Here, we could take Vampire Hexmage. Vampire Hexmage is another copy with Dark Depths, should we pick it up, and it kills opposing Planeswalkers. We could also consider taking like a Temple of Silence in case we get the other Sorin or something similar that we'd want to splash. It's worth a thought. I think I'd rather have the land as opposed to a random combo piece. Wow. Future Sight Wield, as did Stratus Dancer. Future Sight basically says draw your entire deck and play them one at a time. Stratus Dancer is a bit of a low drop and can counter some pretty good stuff. I think I'd rather take the Stratus Dancer just as my 5-drop slot could pretty easily get clogged, especially since I'm picking this Teferi. Teferi, for those of you who are not familiar with him, has flash, and creature cards that you own that aren't on the battlefield have flash, and each opponent can cast spells only anytime he or she could cast a sorcery. Which means that, first of all, Stratus Dancer has flash, which makes it pretty good. In addition, Teferi just trumps all counterspells and stuff like that. So he really, maybe like the right word would be time walks your opponent. I'm not sure. Winter Orb got a lot worse when the artifact mana left, which is fine. I was getting kind of sick of signets, but it's true. Nissa could be really hard for us to deal with, so we're gonna go ahead and take that one. Desecration Demon actually isn't bad here. We're not playing a lot of red, so Anger of the Gods is not great. However, Desecration Demon could be a great way to protect our planeswalkers or apply pressure so that our opponent has to deal with the Desecration Demon rather than our planeswalkers. There are a couple of cards that I really enjoy playing with in this pack, and I'm super excited, although I'm sad because I'm going to pass most of them. I'm not going to get to play with them. Things I like in this pack. First of all, Keranos, God of Storms. Great control win condition. A little bit awkward here, except being Pact of Negation here. Not that awkward. Because our 5-drop slot is pretty full. Factor Fiction is just a great way to draw cards. Kira is a little worse in this deck just because we don't really have anything we want to protect. Nightveil Spectre is pretty cool. Spell Pierce is probably better than either of the creatures. Vampire Nighthawk is worth considering as Death Touch Lifelink Flyer is a great way to protect your planeswalkers as well. I think I just take Factor Fiction. The card advantage is pretty staggering in some situations, so we're going to go ahead and take it. In this pack, I have removal, so I'm definitely prioritizing mana fixing over most other things. And I would have taken any mana fixing had it been in the pack. Here, there is a Liliana Vess, a Glenelenda Archmage, and a Terminate that we could consider. Terminate's great. There was also a Dreadbore in the last pack, which I kind of ignored because the rest of the cards were less committal on the mana, on the mana base. I think Terminate is a good card, but again, I'm a little worried about our ability to play it. Liliana Vess is one of the worse planeswalkers. Not worse, but like not great compared to things like Obnyx and Jace. I think I'd rather have a Glenelenda Archmage. Glenelenda Archmage being 2 counterspells on a stick is really, really good. Hopefully we can wheel something from this pack. Maybe the Electrolyze. Here's our shuffle effect for that Brainstorm. It's off color too. I think I just take Serum Visions. Maybe if I could guarantee wheeling Stomping Ground, I'd take the Misty. There's an Old Man of the Sea. That could be fine, but even the low power level deck manipulation is fine. There's also a Sorin Markov here, which is, again, a little bit heavy on our mana, but it could be pretty neat if we manage to wheel it, but at this point I'm just interested in deck manipulation. So, not mana fixing. Also not mana fixing. Jace Beleren is easily the best card in the pack. We just have to be careful not to play it with, or play Jace Architect of Thought with the Jace Beleren on the field. So, going to go ahead and take the Badlands here. There's also a Flametongue Kavu and a Master of Waves, which is actually pretty good in our deck. As well as a Marsh Flats, which could fix for red if we wheel it. But Badlands is just, straight up red mana fixing. So, I'm happy with it. Ooh. Okay, so we actually have a huge question of whether to take the Tamiyo, the Moon Sage, or the Chromatic Lantern. This is the first piece of artifact mana I've seen in the cube, and in this deck it can actually be pretty good. It ramps us into Obnyx, Part of the Water Veil, and Nicol Bolas, and fixes for things like Flame Slash and Teferi. Tamiyo is one of my favorite planeswalkers, though. She's a lot of fun to play with, and is another great way to protect your planeswalkers and gain card advantage. I think I take the Chromatic Lantern, though. This is such a tough pick for me, you guys don't understand. But, I'm gonna take the Chromatic Lantern on the strength of it being, the only artifact mana I believe in this cube. Gonna go ahead and take Dragon Skull Summit here. It's pretty easily the pick, I think. Again, we don't have a lot of shuffle effects for the Scroll Rack. Whirler Rogue is not really something for this deck. And I'm not really worried about Phyrexian Revoker because we have so many things for it to target that it's not a huge problem for us. So I could splash this Journey to Nowhere. I have the fixing for it. I'm just gonna go ahead and take the Fire Ice though. Wow, we wheeled all of the cards. I think I just want to take the Dreadbore now that I'm a little bit more confident in my ability to cast it. If we thought we were going to wield the Nightveil Spectre, I'd consider playing that or taking that too. I think I just want the removal though. Well, we wield the Terminate and the Lilianavis. Kind of want to take the Terminate here. It's like a better version of Dreadbore. Lilianavis could be the pick, but I think I just want another removal spell. Alright, well, we're gonna take Dark Confidant. I don't think we're gonna play it, but if we do, we'll have it. Birthing Pods is just the most powerful card in that pack. It splashes Regrowth and get back our Nicol Bolas. I've done it before. It's so much fun. Again, not really worried about the Survivalist, and yeah, we didn't wheel the Tamio. Alright, so deck's pretty sweet. I think there was a Sweet Blue Devotion deck somewhere in the draft that we could have like picked up on, but I kind of like the removal heavy Planeswalker deck. We have 4 Planeswalkers and a bunch of removal and some card advantage, which is great. And like 2 free spells, 2 whole free spells. So what are we looking at cutting here? I think Serendib Efreet is less good in the Nicol Bolas deck. And let's see, I'm not quite sure about Desecration Demon either. And I want to cut 1 card, so this might be the pick. Or the cut, rather. Yeah. We're gonna go ahead and do that. Although, I think Fire Ice could also be worth cutting. We're probably going to be using the ice part a lot more than we're using the fire part. I think we still want to keep it in though. It cycles, which is nice, if anything. So 1, 7 versus 8. Punch black. No, I think we want one blue source, and then we've got 6 red sources. Is that too many? I think so. So we've got 7, 8, 7, and 5. Yeah, that'll work. Also, Chromatic Lantern, I feel like is going to do a lot of work in this deck. Let's add another basic land. I'll add a swamp this time. And we'll run it. I'll see you guys in round 1.